An eventful day 3 of the 2025 NFL Draft has come to the close for the Miami Dolphins, but the UDFA market is just opening and the Miami Dolphins are hitting the ground running hard, especially at wide receiver right now. We're going to talk about it all. I'm going to give my reaction, my thoughts, and my analysis of every pick made, the trade back, as well as every UDFA signed up until this point. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. We're going to get into this one.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. It's going over the touchdown again. Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one as our draft coverage continues. Today we're recapping day 3. Tomorrow I'll be live and I'll be handing out grades to you all. Before we get into everything Dolphins related, a few things I want to talk about. Number one, I saw it in the chat. Surprised Isaiah Bond wasn't drafted. Don't be, brother. Serious character concerns. We're talking about a guy here who, like, just before the draft, turned himself in, okay, to the police, all right, because of a sexual assault warrant that was issued against him, all right? Even beyond that, I heard serious stuff during the combine and during the interview process. I just didn't hear good things about Isaiah Bond, like him and him saying he's going to run beat the record and not doing it made it even worse. That was his only chance getting drafted, is if he beat the record. Yeah, so it's the same reason why Mike Green, now you guys saw on day 2, Mike Green, it was talked about. Listen, okay, you know what? I'll just drop the Mike Green nugget right now. I'll keep the Walter Nolan because I know people are interested. I'll keep that for the Patreons, but I'll tell you the Mike Green nugget. So you saw Rappaport yesterday. Ian Rappaport was talking about, Mike Green had a sexual assault allegation in high school, and then he had another one in Virginia Tech, and then teams didn't they didn't find his answers to the questions satisfactory. Okay, well, I'll give you details on that. Okay, so this is what went down. So when he had the sexual allegation charge in high school, it tanked his recruiting process, sent it to the gutter. Virginia Tech came through. They said, okay, we will give you basically a no-nonsense scholarship. There's no screwing up. Boom, gets there, boom, another sexual allegation charge. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting for me. This is where I can tell you. So, as I've alluded to some of you guys, that I have a plug over in the NFC right now, okay? And I know this plug was sitting on the combine interview process, okay? And basically they brought up the sexual allegation, the sexual assault allegations to Mike Green. And I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically what he said. Whether they did or didn't happen doesn't matter anymore. That's literally what he said. He didn't give an explanation. It was literally like, whether those allegations are true or not, that doesn't matter anymore. Whether that actually happened or not, doesn't matter anymore. That was his stance. That's what he was saying to teams. Buddy, he got up and left after the interview. The NFC team that I got to plug in took him directly off their board. Just said, not even the first round board, directly off their board. Like said, no, we're not drafting that guy. Peace. And they said on Mike Green. That's why Mike Green, dude, the guy's a top 20, top 15 talent. But as a person, the guy's a piece of you know what. He's scum. He's a terrible person. You know? And then, hey, why wouldn't the Ravens draft him? We all know this. They were covering up Justin Tucker's, massage stuff, just like the Texans were doing with Deshaun Watson. Buddy, ask Neil. He's lived out, he's got a lot of plugs in the Baltimore Ravens community, media, as well as with the team. Man, they knew about Tucker for years. They were covering it up, though. Anyways, Patreon's channel members, I'll just tell you this week why Walter Nolan was undraftable for the Miami Dolphins, okay? Now, shout out. I got a few donations I got to get through here. Shout out to Penn. She came through and donated 10 Phinside The NFL memberships. Salute to you, Penn. Always talking to me on X. Always, keeping me company on X. And always building the Phinside fam. I appreciate it. And shout out to Arturo for the $5 donation. I truly appreciate that, good sir. All right, Shedeur slide. Listen, what did I tell you? Now, would I have drafted Dillon Gabriel before him? No. I do think Shedeur was sliding a bit because of who he surrounded himself with. And it was a matter of people were like, the further back we push him, the further back we take him, the less of a risk it is whether we got to cut him because we don't want to deal with the people around him. This is a living and breathing example of you are a reflection of the company you keep. Plus, I don't know if you guys heard the report today. Apparently why New York wanted nothing to do with him during, how the Giants were just bringing teams back. We're just bringing quarterbacks back around for all those last minute visits. Well, when they brought Shedeur back, he wasn't prepared. They asked him, to do some chalkboard work. He wasn't prepared. Dabble called him out on not being prepared. And Shedeur Sanders basically got into an argument with Dabble. So he wasn't prepared and then he argued. A lot of people are wondering if he's really got the desire. He's got his dad's money. He's already had a bunch of nil money. Does he have the desire to be great? I don't know. But see what I've told you? Now, this doesn't hold true for Dillon Gabriel, but what was happening? Milroe, Dart, everyone I told you about, Rourke, it was either traits and upside or traits, and they were going ahead of him. Now, do I think, the guys who went ahead of him should have went ahead of him? No. Some of them, are egregious. Dillon Gabriel. But, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck, and Jackson Dart all made sense. They all made sense. And then Kyle McCord went around later. So, the Shedeur slide, it did make a bit of sense. You know what I mean? In terms of, betting on trades, and especially in a weak draft class. Shout out to George. Do you think Ewers will be able to beat out Wilson? Listen, you want a bold take? You want a bold take from Reason? What are you going to ask him? If you are looking for someone from a timing, accuracy, from a structure standpoint, from the short to intermediate level, Ewers is better than Zach Wilson. Now, is Zach Wilson a better athlete? Yes. Does Zach Wilson have a better arm in terms of strength and velocity he can get on it? Yes. But when you're talking about mechanics and stuff, and when you're talking about the fit in a West Coast offense, man, I've been telling you. Have I not been telling you since August? I've been telling you they love Quinn Ewers. Man, I thought he was going to go to San Francisco. When I saw my boy, my fellow Canuck, Curtis Rourke, go to the San Francisco 49ers, I'm like, oh, here we go. It's going to be Quinn Ewers. I knew it, 110%. I was busy. I couldn't tweet it out, but I knew it. I was like, here we go. I've been telling you guys. I've known they've liked this guy since last year's Pro Day when everyone thought we were in love with Xavier Worthy. No, they were in love with Quinn Ewers. I talked to reporters out in Texas about it privately. It's for real. I'm telling you, man. So, but it don't matter. Ewers could be All the Ewers haters could be proven wrong by his play in training camp or the preseason. It's not going to matter. They're paying Zach Wilson $6 million. That's the fact of the matter. They're paying the guy $6 million. I'm telling you, and I've said it, all you Jay-Z fans, politics as usual. What do I always say, right? There you go. There's some more for you. And listen, I said this. Okay, now we'll get into some of the picks. Were there some picks in the 5th round where I would have went a different direction? 110%. Were there better corners and safeties I thought available, as well as better options in terms of double dipping at offensive guard or in the interior because there were good centers available? Yes, I believe so. But guys, we're getting it when you get into like the 5th, when you get into the 5th, 6th, 7th round, you're starting to get into glorified UDFA territory. You don't want these guys to hit the UDFA market and miss out on them. That's what we're getting into. Okay, this is where Grier is more hands-off. Grier is more hands-on in the first 5 rounds. When you get to this is most GMs in the NFL. When you get to the 5th round, usually they let their scouting department start to take their guys. A perfect example, Patrick McMorris. That was a pick of the scouting department last year. This is where you let your department get their guys that they're high on. That's where you let them shine a little bit. Right? Because GMs don't have time to watch, over 300 players in a draft cycle, plus all the free agents that are coming out. That's just too much work, man. GMs just don't have that kind of time on their hands. They just don't. So, I'm just saying. Ewers is going to make this team 110%. But anyways, we'll get into it. So let's just start it off. It's a lot to go on, baby. It's a lot to go on. So, one of the guys who I thought they were going to be able to land in the 6th or 7th, and I labeled him a home run. I'll still label him a home run in the 5th. They drafted him. They drafted a couple other guys, I mean, we're going to get into it here. I thought it was I'm not going to sit here and say it was a bad day. I'm not going to, were there a couple, I would have went a different direction on a few different picks, but, it is what it is. I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. And like I said, you get in the 5th, 6th round, 7th round, you are getting into, okay, now you're really starting to get into guys that are, like I said, are glorified UDFAs. I try to tell you guys this. You know what I mean? So, anyways, let's get into this. All right. So, the day started off kind of wild a little bit. Again, the Miami Dolphins traded back after not picking since 37 when they traded up. The Miami Dolphins traded back. They traded 116 and 224 for 179 and a 3rd round pick next year. So they're adding another 3rd round pick next year. That's what the key takeaway is here. This gives them flexibility next year, and you all know what I mean by that. If their quarterback situation, if Tua gets hurt again, if they're not, that gives them more ammo. If they're in a position where they're not doing well next year and they're going to end up with a top 10, top 5 pick, that 3rd round pick is more ammo. That's what that is. Now, the issue I now have with this is, by the time we end up picking, which was at, 143, which is what we got in the trade last night for moving up. Man, by the time you're talking about like 106 picks have gone by since you're talking about like 3 full rounds plus some. Holy, and yes, Ramsey will probably give us another asset June 1st. That's 110%. So the Miami Dolphins, they finally decided to make a pick at 143, and that pick, that was Jordan Phillips. And listen, I am super duper high on Jordan Phillips. I like this pick. I like this pick a lot. He made my top 15 DT big board. He was number 13. Okay. Obviously not to be confused with former Dolphins player Jordan Phillips. We're talking about 6'1.5", 312 pounds. So I think he displays some serious power on that interior. Very violent. Moves better than you would think for a man who's built the way he is and is as stout as he is. I think he's got good pad level. Helps him win leverage battles. I think he's got some pass rush upside. I don't think he's there yet, but I think he flashes the upside. I think you're talking about, you got like hammers for hands here, bro. Like, you got a guy where, man, that punch is devastating. He lands it. Oh boy. I think he has a high ceiling too. He's only 20. Now, I think he's still raw overall as a pass rusher and a run defender. I think he needs to expand his pass rush skill set, his bag of tricks, his repertoire, if you will. His counter ability isn't that great yet. He can get stifled on that first move. Obviously, the college production, especially from a sack standpoint, you would wish it'd be a lot better. But I think, I said this in my DT big board. He was getting drafted on what he could be. And think about this. You're talking about a guy with like as minimal sack production as possible getting drafted at 143. That tells you how good he could be. That tells you the upside of him. It really does. I think he could flex out to 3 too. I think Maryland kind of pigeonholed him as just a 0. I really do. Honestly. And I'm going to tell you this. Adding Jordan... Guys, this is going to be a hard defense to run against. I think he's going to beat out Benito Jones. This is going to be... And then, I think if you could somehow find an upgrade over Tyrell Dodson... Look at what they were trying to build with Dre Greenlaw there. Imagine if you had Dre Greenlaw and Jordan Brooks on the second level behind what they built right now on that front. I'm telling you, this defense, that's why they're relaxing. They're now, Flores was build from the back to the front, and we've started going into a transition of now we're more trying to build from the front to the back. And, that's the Raven way. That's what Weaver comes from. And, they're not going to be asking these guys to hold their coverage for 4, 5, 6 seconds. This front is going to be breaking it down in 2.5. They're gotten better in the trenches, and they've gotten meaner in the trenches over the last 3 days. I don't care if it's only 3 picks. I love it. I'm here for it. And, he's another one. Check this out. For you've been watching my recaps. He's another one who made the athletics freak list from last year. Look at this. Mike Loxley didn't have to think long when asked about Maryland's biggest freak. It's a 6'3", 320-pound sophomore who began his career at Tennessee. Loxley said, this kid is a man-child. He's explosive. He's Daron Payne. He's a nose tackle, but he's light and so twitchy. Phillips, a former standout wrestler and weightlifter in high school, started 10 games last year for the Terps, making 28 tackles and 1.5 tackles for a loss. He squatted 665 pounds, power clean 365, and did an overhead press of 365 pounds for 2 reps. Come on, baby. And yeah, is he a 0? Is he a nose? Yes, but watch. Dude, the twitchiness and what he's got, he can flex out to 3. Don't pigeonhole these guys. Stop it. We are not drafting guys that are pure noses. We are drafting guys. Look at the athleticism we're adding and look at the power we're adding at these guys. Like, look at his vertical, right? Here's his Raz. Look at his vertical now. He's not, you're not expecting that guy to be the most agile in the world. But look at this, 29 bench reps of 225 pounds, 312 pounds, right? 6'1", 5/8, 31-inch vertical, and a 9-foot broad jump. Talking about some serious explosion in that lower half right there. This guy's only 20 years old. I'm telling you. Guys, 20 years old. Whoo-wee. I like this pick, man. I like this pick a lot. I think Hit that one out of the park. Man, how can you not love that the first 3 picks were trenches and it changed the tone of this team? How does that not get you excited? Trying to kill that soft narrative. I love it. I love it. I'm a fan. So I think Jordan Phillips in a rotation, beautiful. Him, Benito in a rotation, because he gives you a little bit more flexibility than Benito. You're a better athlete than Benito. You know, I think there's some flexibility there, man. I think there's some flexibility there. This defense, who knows what the offense is gonna be with, because Mike McDaniel and who it can become a mess under pressure, and he hasn't proven he can call plays under pressure, and he hasn't proven he can adapt under pressure. Tua can't. We're back to, can you stay healthy after having a healthy season where he looked really good? Now it's back to, can you stay healthy? Who knows what's going to happen on offense? But with the way this defense is rolling, they're building something that from last year was putting you in a position to win games, where now they're building something where it's looking like, you give this another year, this thing's going to be able to consistently win you games. Maybe you might even start doing it this year. If you fix that back end, if you add another veteran corner, and maybe find someone we can rely on from a health standpoint in terms of at safety, throw another body out there. Man, if you patch up that secondary enough, this defense could win you games next year for real. For real. Serious. Look at how much. What did they add? Like almost a ton worth of players. Literally, almost a ton worth of players. And they added almost 1,000 pounds and 3 players in the first 3 rounds. That's crazy. I love it. Now, do I wish we had more picks up there? Yes, 110%. Now, here's where I can already tell you on my grading, we're going to have some discourse tomorrow. But here's where I'm. So the Miami Dolphins were on the clock next at 150. We needed a corner. They took Jason Marshall Jr. I am not overly high on this pick. I'm sorry. I'm not. You know? I get it. He was a 5-star recruit out of Florida, hometown boy. I get it. You know? I think he's a better man-to-man corner probably than zone. You know? So, he's got really good movement ability. I don't think he's a ball hawk, but I think he can make a play on the, wouldn't call him a ball hawk, because when I think of that, I think of someone who turns the ball over. And we're talking about a guy who hasn't had an interception since 2022. And it's not exactly like he's a tackle machine, but he will break passes up. Like, he led Florida in 2022 and 2023 in passes defended. And so, he'll get his hand in a passing lane and break it up, but he's not going to turn the ball over. Right. So, he can physical impress, you know what I mean? So again, that's how he is able to defend passes and break up passes too. He's physical at the catch point. You know what I mean? But like, we're again talking to a guy who hasn't had an interception in over 2 years. Right? I don't see confidence in his play. You know what I mean? In terms of instincts, whether it's triggering downhill, you know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be in run defense, or, whether it's in coverage. I don't see good instincts. That's why I don't see the interceptions. So, yeah, I think you got guys with good route runners, and twitchy route runners can give him issues for sure. So, yeah, I don't think he's a great tackler in run support either. He had an injury last year. I think what'd he do? I think he tore his labrum. And I think he tore his labrum last year or something. So, I think, you're talking about a good guy with really good size to him, a pretty decent athlete. But, you know, I don't know. Was he 6 foot, 194, I think? You know? So, yeah, I don't know. He never lived up to what he's... Listen, guys, I watched the Gators. You all know this. Go back to, you know, I tell y'all the Chris Leak and the Tebow days. You know, I don't know, man. I just really... doesn't get me excited. I thought there were better options on the board. I'm not going to lie. Like, if you were going to go corner, I thought there were better options on the board. You know, Zoff Frazier was still on the board. That's a ball hawk, and that's athletic freak upside. I'd bet on that. And he went like 20 picks later. Jordan Hancock was still on the board. Dorian Strong, Denzel Burke was still on the board. I would have taken those guys. You know what I mean? There were still decent safeties on the board, I believe, at that point too. You know? And we'll get into safety in a little bit, but there were still some decent safeties on the board. There were still some decent guard prospects on the board at that point. So, you know, like, I think, you know, I think there's other places I would have went there. Even at corner, there's other guys I would have went. I would have taken Zoff Frazier all day over that. Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke, and Dorian Strong too. Zoff Frazier, man, you're in the 5th round. Bet on the traits and the upside right now. Like, bet on it. What are you saying a little bit? I'm like, you know? So, and I don't want to get into safety because we're about to get into safety, so I'm going to say all the names. But again, guard, like, you know, there were still guys on the board I would have taken. Marcus Bowe was still on the board. I would have taken him. I would have doubled down. Jackson Slater, Miles Frazier was still on the board. I would have taken him over that. Man, Jalen Rivers out of Miami, I would have taken over that. I'm just saying, you know, like, I just don't see a ton of upside here. You know, no, he was off the board. He was off the board. So, I don't know. But again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's a bad pick or hate the pick, because we're getting into glorified UDFA territory. So I won't say that. I will say I would have went in a different direction. Let me say that. All right. Now, when you do look at him as an athlete, though, I mean, you know, 9.37 RAS, you know, 6 foot 194, 37.5-inch vertical, 10 foot 5-inch broad jump, 4.49, 40-yard dash, 20-yard split, 10-yard split. So, you know, athletic upside for sure. But, man, if you're... Okay, so now you're going to say, well, reason they're betting on the athletic upside. So then again, I go back to Zoff Frazier. Why aren't we just betting on Zoff Frazier? You know? Like, the guy has legitimate ball hawking numbers to his game. And he ran a 4.36. And he's almost 6'3", and he's like 186. So he's got better length to his frame, and he can put on a little bit of weight, and he's running a 4.36. And, you know, he actually had some serious ball production. Well, I won't say serious, but he actually had, you know, and we all saw where Tyreek Woolen came from, right? UDSA, I'm just saying. We're betting on upside at that point, an athletic upside. I'm betting on that. Guy had 6 interceptions last year. You know? I'm just saying. It hasn't been 2 years since his last interception. So if we're going to bet on upside, that's what I would have bet on. But hey, to each their own. Let's see how it goes. You know? Knock yourself out. Hey, I'm not going to knock it too in the secondary. I knocked Patrick McMorris a little bit, went back and watched the tape, saw what they saw, and was like, oh, okay, I take that back. I like what I see if you go back and watch the tape. And then sure enough, he turned out to be good, and I was like, yep, there you go. So I'll trust him on this. But I'm just saying I would have went in a different direction at that point. So 5 picks later, the Dolphins were on the board, and here's where they went safety. And they went Dante Trader Jr. Now, for me, he's got better ball production than the guy he just drafted at corner. He's got 5 interceptions over the last 3 years. Not going to knock that. So what I like about him a little bit, I think he's a good athlete. He looks like a good athlete on tape a little bit. Didn't test that well, didn't test that well at all. He ran a 4.65 at his pro day. That's why he fell so hard. He's just under 5'11". He's about 196, 200 pounds in that range, but he looks faster on tape, man. You watch him click and close, and he's really quick to trigger. He looks decently athletic on film. He looks better than what he tested. In terms of only a 31-inch, vert and a 9.9 broad jump, he looks decently athletic on film. He's physical. You know what I mean? Plays with good technique. Pretty good tackler. Whether in the open field or through traffic, doesn't matter. Yeah, I think he's got pretty good range too, but I bet you that 4.65 40 scared a lot of teams, right? Now, here's what I would say. I'd say he's a pretty good athlete, but not really good. You're not getting an elite athlete with Trader. He didn't even make my top 15. Now he would have made my top 20 if I would have went there, but he didn't make top 15. I don't think he's got top end athleticism or speed to handle twitchy, explosive receivers, out of the slot or coming across his coverage area, right? So, I don't like, I think, what here's what he screams to me. Jag. He screams just another guy. That's what he screams to me. I don't watch him and go, oh yeah. I never, I remember watching him and nothing, I don't remember being wowed, at any point. So, hey, maybe he's better pro. I don't know. In my opinion. The one-man opinion on, doesn't matter whether I've been right a lot or not. It's just my opinion. But hey, again, 5th round, 155. Am I going to sit here and say I hate it or it's bad? No. That's ridiculous. Because we're getting into UDFA. Now, would I have gone a different way? Yeah, at safety alone. I would have drafted Jalen Reed. I would have drafted Rayun Lane. I would have drafted RJ Mickens. I would have drafted Hunter Waller. All guys who end up getting drafted after. I would have drafted all 4 of those guys over Dante Trader. I think Jalen Reed's going to be very intriguing, to be completely honest with you. I would have drafted Hunter Waller all day. The Colts got a sleeper with him. But again, same thing goes for guard. There's guards I would have drafted over that. Again, we get into Jackson Slater, Miles Frazier. I would have drafted over that. It is what it is. There's corners I would have drafted over that too. I've already named them. Hell, I would have drafted Chris Paul at linebacker over that. Jeffrey Bass out of Oregon, I probably would have drafted over that too. But hey, it is what it is. They went their way. I'll go my way. But they got on the right track with the next pick. Let's be real here. Let's keep it 110%. I think they got back on track 24 picks later. I think they got a real good one here. Now, he just missed outside of my top 15. He was 17. He would have been 17 on my top 15 big board. But as Patreons and channel members, they saw my top 15. I went back and looked. He was 17. So, Ollie Gordon. I actually really like this addition for where they went at 179 in round 6. You're not going to hear a complaint from me at all about this. I am a happy camper with this pick. I think Ollie Gordon offers you a lot, man. a lot as a rotational third down back. 6'1", 226. Guys, 1,670 of his rushing yards over the last 2 seasons came after contact. And oh yeah, he put up a total of 2,612 yards. So you do the math. He had under 1,000 yards before contact. His 2023 season was unreal. He had 1,732 rushing yards and 21 rushing touchdowns. He was a Heisman candidate that year. He's a playmaker, I'm telling you. Great second level acceleration on tape, I think. Great vision, especially in the open field, to take good angles, making defenders miss in pursuit. Capable and willing as a blocker. I think he's really effective at it. Offers you upside as a pass catcher. Has some solid, reliable hands. Now, is he explosive or twitchy? No. I wouldn't say he's explosive or twitchy by any stretch of the imagination. I think he can get caught running a little too upright at times. That can make him an easy target. That can hinder his acceleration, his explosiveness too. I think he's more north-south than he is east-west. I don't think you're going to be blown away by his change of direction ability, or his agility. You know what I mean? Now, he had a dip in rushing production in 2024. Obviously, he didn't have a good offensive line. But that will stand out to you. He had a big dip in production, and he just didn't have a good offensive line. But I think you're talking about, and I can't wait to do my prospect profile of him. That's going to be exciting. Yeah, Matt, exactly. Matt Farms has one cut up the middle bruiser, exactly. That's a great addition as a third guy with Madison in the rotation. I like it. I think the fit and the value is really, really good right there. Shout out to Josh Miller coming through with the $50 bomb. He said, reason best in the Dolphins community, whether it's football season, inside info, or draft season. Been watching for over 2 years. Can't wait to see the undrafted FAs we sign. Hope Bama punter James Burnap is one. Beefed up the Lions. Thanks. I love it, Josh Miller. Hey, I'm down to add some competition, and I appreciate that. You know what's going to get lost in the mix, Josh Miller? How on point I was with the Ramsey thing, right? Armando Salguero puts out an article. Oh, it's about a pay cut. Walks it back a few hours later. No, it's because Ramsey and McDaniel's relationship is irreparable. Right after Tony Pauline had reported earlier in the day that veterans are leaving because they don't like Mike McDaniel. And I had a report, 2 weeks ago now that, yeah, Ramsey and McDaniel don't get along. Ramsey's not a fan of McDaniel's coaching style, demeanor, and culture. And other players feel the same way too. And that's going to get lost in the shuffle because it's draft weekend. But man, what a win for me this weekend, eh? I got nailed the Ramsey info that I gave y'all. I nailed Savannah. I nailed, obviously, Kenneth Grant. I ended up, even if it was later, I ended up nailing Quinn Ewers because I told y'all how much they loved him. And boom, that was their quarterback pick. So, I mean, hey, we're out here, baby. Let's go. Let's go. So Garrett was a hack. Don, you kill me. You kill me. Oh, what a weekend, though. What a weekend. So, anyways, keeping up with Ollie here a little bit for a sec. All right? Because there is a little bit more to discuss with good old Ollie Oxenfree. Is that what we're going to call him? Should we call him Ollie Oxenfree? Ollie Oxenfree! All right, here we go. This is Raz. That's why he dipped. He ran a 4.61. You see it, though. He doesn't have long speed, but he does have acceleration. Like, I see a better 20 and 10-yard split on film than what I saw at the combine. 6'1", 226. 34.5-inch vertical, 10-foot broad jump. Like, this is why I don't think that does it justice, okay? Because, yeah, OG2, baby. You know what you see from him? When he gets in rhythm is when he finds his pace. That's when he finds his motor. That's when he finds his gears. When he starts running, when he starts getting... And listen, I know he can be a little impatient at times, but there's plenty of times when you see him be patient behind the line and wait for it to develop and hit it. And you know what I mean? But he's very much a rhythm runner. Like, you got to give him the ball and you got to let him find his rhythm. And once he gets in rhythm, he'll get going. You know what I mean? And no, he don't need that 0 from Zach Wilson. My boy Jalen Wright has first dibs on that 0. And I don't know why I didn't report it, but I knew Zach Wilson was getting 0 like over a month ago. Because I hit up Jalen's dad and I said, listen, should I get myself my Jalen jersey? You know, because I'll be honest with you, me and Jalen Wright's dad text a lot. And I hit him up and I said, shout out to Curtis, man. That's the homie right there. And I said to Curtis, I said, listen, should I get should I wait? Because I want to get, I got to start getting these Man Crush jerseys. I still haven't got my 8-chan. And the reason why is because I don't want the press-ons. I hate the press-on that they've gone to. Man, I hate how they've changed the jersey styles. Anyways, I got to get my 8-chan, my Chop. Now I got to get a Savannah and a Grant because all my Man Crushes keep getting drafted. And I got to get a Wright. So I got 5 Man Crush jerseys I got to get. Anyways, I hit him up and I said, listen, should I wait on Wright? Because he's getting 0. Now that Barriers is gone. He said, no, they're giving it to a quarterback. And the only quarterback at the time on the roster other than Tua was Zach. So I knew Zach was getting it like a long time ago. So, we'll see. We'll see. Love it though. I'm a fan. I am a fan of it, 110%. All right, now we ain't done though. Then the Miami Dolphins, what did they do? 7th round, pick 231. This man slid all the way to them. Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers dropped all the way to 231. The Miami Dolphins, well, they jumped on it. The man they've been eyeing when everyone thought they were loving Xavier Worthy last year at the Pro Day. Nope. It was this man they had their eye on. He's a player since last August. I've been saying on this channel would be a McDaniel type of guy because he fits what's asked of a quarterback in this offense. There's just no other way around it. He just does. When you watch him, it's impressive he can create out of structure, He's not the greatest athlete in the world, but when the play breaks down, he can throw off different arm angles out of different arm slots. He's really accurate from the short to intermediate level. He can drive the ball decently from the short to the intermediate level too. He'll threaten tight windows on the short to intermediate level. He's got good footwork in the pocket, leads receivers open field, can throw with anticipation. I just think he's a perfect fit for a West Coast offense. Mechanics are pretty consistently clean. The football IQ is definitely there, right? Not afraid of competition. Arch Manning was nipping on his heels and he kept him off him. Shedeur has made some big plays and big throws in big games. Now, where you start to see the fall off is the arm. The accuracy dips on the deep levels. The arm strength, the velocity and the drive dips a lot on the deep levels. It's just not a very strong arm. It's going to be one of the weaker arms in the NFL. He just can't afford to be late on reads because of that arm. Not great under pressure. Like, that's when you'll see his mechanics start to suffer, is under pressure. That's where you'll even see his footwork, which is usually really clean, start to suffer. And real question, how much of a ceiling is left on this kid? Is he more of a high floor? Now, here's the thing. This guy coming into the 2024 collegiate season was supposed to be one of the top prospects in this class. Injuries and regression and, a plateau in play dropped him. He just like Shedeur, he looked like he plateaued after 2023. That's it is what it is. I think he's better than Skylar Thompson. I think he's a lot better than Skylar Thompson. Now, I don't think that's true. He can't escape because there are plays where he escapes and he makes throws on the run. I posted some on X. Go look. There's a couple. He was making plays on them. Look at his touchdown throw to Gunnar Helm against Michigan. Like, that was a nice in 2023. Look at that throw. Was it 2023? No, it's 2025. 2024. Yeah, it's 2024. Go look at that throw to Gunnar Helm. Like, he escapes, gets out, and makes that throw back across his body to the middle of the end zone. Like, it's a good throw. But he'll make a throw like that, and then he'll make a decision or a throw after that, and you'll be like, what is this guy doing? You know? So, you know, I'm going to tell you this. From in structure, he's better than Zach Wilson in structure. Now, does Zach Wilson have a better arm in terms of strength and velocity? 110%. Is Zach Wilson a better playmaker out of structure because of his athleticism? 110%. But when you're talking about in structure, asking to attack the middle of the field in the short to intermediate level, Quinn Ewers is better than Zach Wilson. So I'll say, like, so it's pick your poison. You know, if Tua goes down, who do you want to come in? Someone like Ewers that could probably operate your offense and what you want to do and how it's structured? Or someone like Zach Wilson who could have you pulling your hair out when he gets out of structure, never stays in structure. Like, throwing with timing, anticipation, you know, and leading receivers to the ball, that's not his strength. Ewers can do that stuff. And let's be honest, Ewers has thrown to speed. He was throwing to Worthy. He was throwing to Adonai Mitchell. You know, he was throwing to Matthew Golden. He was throwing to Isaiah Bond, you know. And even go watch the film. There are plenty of times where even Arch Manning was underthrowing Matthew Golden this year. So, he can throw to speed. We know this too. Just saying. That value is just really good. Like, come on. How are you going to argue with that? And then, to finish off the 7th round at 253, the Miami Dolphins may have taken the best name at defensive tackle in the draft. And that is Zeek Biggers from Georgia Tech. Man, this is a deep one they went with here. I'll tell you this much. Holy jeez, this is a big one. But 6'5.5", 321. He's a big boy. You know, a little bit of sack production, 4 sacks over the last 2 years. You know, 7.5 tackles for losses over the last 2 years. Has a couple blocked field goals under his belt. You know, I think he has 4 blocked field goals during his time. So he's going to offer you something on special teams, man. He got big time length to that frame. Like, he's got the prototypical frame and length you like to see for a defensive tackle. You know, he's got that power. He got some serious power. All right. He got, you know, I don't think he put up his bench reps, but you know, he's got at the combine, but I think he put up 22 at his pro day. I don't know, something like that, but you see the power flash on tape for sure. For sure. And I don't think he's up there in terms of age. Like, if I remember correctly, he's still under, like, he's like 21. So, he's another guy who, you know, as a starter the last 2 years, he hasn't missed any games. He started all 26 games over the last 2 years. Right? Now, the production you wish would be better, considering, you know, what you see from that frame and that length and that power. You wish it was a little bit better in terms of production. So I don't think he's explosive, or, you know, I don't think he's explosive out of his stance. I don't think he shows explosion or, you know, explosiveness or, you know, through gaps, you know what I mean? And I do think he needs to finish better. He's tackling is a little bit of an issue for him, but again, at that pick, I like that. That's a good pick, man. Let's keep going. Keep adding. Keep beefing up those trenches, man. Let's go. I ain't mad. And when you look at his testing, like, you're talking about like a really good athlete here. You know? 320, and it says unofficial because those are pro day numbers. But, you know, that's a damn good RAS right there. That's a damn good RAS. 34.5 inch vert, 9 foot 3 inch broad, 6'5" height, 6'5.5" basically, because 6'5", 4/8", right? The weight 321 pounds. Like, damn, guy can move. Like, you just look at the length, the frame, the way he can move, the athleticism. You just expected the numbers to be a bit better, but I like the upside on that guy. I think that's a really sneaky good pick. That's not just a good name. I think that's a sneaky good pick. I really do. I'm intrigued. Color me curious. All right. Now, we're gonna get into a little bit here because after it all went down with the draft, all right, went ahead and had the post picks press conference, and here's what Grier and McDaniel said. Here's your news and notes from it. Here's what Grier had to say about several of the picks and other issues on Ewers. Quote, Quinn had a very good college football career. We've talked to Texas coach Steve Sarkisian about him. Sark really likes him and talked about him playing through injuries this year, which affected his play a bit. He talked about his mental toughness. He loves his competitiveness, how he played, how his teammates responded at that point in the draft. It made sense to pull the pick. Grier said the team considered drafting Shedeur Sanders, who fell to Cleveland in the 5th round. We had lots of discussions about him today on why the Dolphins drafted bigger players. Grier said we wanted to get better on offensive line. We talked about adding youth, and it just so happens these guys are bigger players, physical, tough kids who love football. They fit the bill at the offensive line spot. Grier on where things stand with Jalen Ramsey trade talks. He said, quote, we've had conversation through the weekend with teams. Whatever it happens, we will make the deal at the appropriate time, so it feels like it's going to be post June 1st. Will Grier wait until June 1st when the cap hit is lower? Not necessarily, Grier said. Quote, whenever those opportunities arrive, Miami will explore them. When asked about his relationship with Ramsey, McDaniel said he did not wish to discuss it on draft weekend. Oh, boy. Grier on why the Dolphins traded a 4th-round pick in a deal for a 3rd-round pick in 2025. Quote, when you have opportunities to get a pick in the 3rd round, that's a very valuable pick. To move down, we have a number of picks on the 3rd day. For us, it's always looking short and long term, he said, when the focus is only on now. That's when you will make mistakes. How likely is it to add another veteran quarterback? Grier said, we've had a number of conversations with veteran free agents who are good players. Those will continue, and we will see if we can get something done. McDaniel said, with Ollie, I saw a lot of really good stuff. It was evident when we visited with him. He was eager to prove himself. The 2023 tape was very impressive. Based upon our interactions with him, we feel optimistic that this is a version we are going to improve upon. U.S. Marshall is a size corner with movement skills, Grier said. Now, one thing's for sure, adding that 3rd-round pick in 2025 raises a lot, in 2026, raised a lot of eyebrows because that's a move. Like I've told you, I reported to my patrons, I reported to my channel members. What was I hearing coming out of the combine? That Grier and McDaniel were safer than the media and the fan base thought. I was reporting this back at like the beginning of March, end of February. That this is what was going on, that they were safer than people thought. And here you go. Look at, they're making moves. So am I shocked? No. I'm not shocked. At all. At all. I'm not shocked at all. Kind of crazy though, huh? Kind of crazy. So, but that's where we're at. Now they're talking about cornerbacks being available. Asante Samuel Jr. is still sitting out there. Rasul Douglas is still out there. You know, there are still options out there right now. Jack Jones is out there. Just don't go back and go get Eli Apple. But there are options out there. I think CJ Henderson is still out there too. Mike Hilton's still out there. But Rasul Douglas and Asante Samuel, and hey, if you want to get veteran, Stephon Gilmore's out there. But Asante Samuel is obviously the top. I think Mike Hilton, Rasul Douglas, and Stephon Gilmore will probably be the top ones out there right now. But there are options out there at corner for the Miami Dolphins right now. 110%. Now, another thing that's going on right now, UDFAs are starting to get signed by the Miami Dolphins, which is really, really interesting. So they've made some signings. And we're going to dive into the UDFA signings tomorrow when I do my grades, but I'll let you know up until this point who they've signed, who they've added, because it is quite interesting. They've added some very good people to this team right now. All right. Actually, you know what? I'll bring it up for you guys. Let's go over it. I think they've added some very, very interesting signings here. So here are the updates so far. All right. This is who they've added to from the UDFA pool out there. All right. Because they're coming in right now hot. So here you go. Let's get into it. Arkansas receiver Andrew Armstrong intends to sign with the Dolphins, according to his agent. He had 78 catches for 1,140 yards last season, which both led the Southeastern Conference. One of those catches was a touchdown. He played only one previous season of college football, also at Arkansas, and had 56 catches for 764 yards. This is a stud, ladies and gentlemen. This is a stud signing, ladies and gentlemen. Like, this is a great addition. Wow. The fact that they were able to get this is very, very impressive. Like, he is good, people. Like, he's a little old. He's just under 25. But, man, he made second team all SEC last year. Just under 6'4". He's 6'3" and 6'8". He's 202. Runs a 4.5. 40, you know what I mean? Had a 37.5-inch vertical, 10-foot 4-inch broad jump. He's a good player. He can stretch a team vertically when he gets going, right? He's got length to his frame for days. I think his wingspan is almost 80 inches. It's like 79.5 inches. He's big, he's strong. Man, he's good. Good balance to his body, good movement to his body. Man, I like him. And he's a little elusive too. He's got some elusiveness to his game. That is a really sneaky good pick. The Dolphins agreed to a deal with 5'9" receiver Monterey Baldwin, who had 27 catches for 478 yards. Camp body. Missouri Theo Weiss Jr. They gave him $230,000 guarantee. 884 yards last season. That's interesting. Caught 173 passes for 2,610 yards. That's very interesting. Now, I don't know. That's a lot of money. They got intentions of him making the roster. I'm not overly high on him. I don't know. He's got good size to him. Decent athlete. He got good body control. Decent route runner. But, I think, given that size, he's 6'3", 200. You would expect him to be a little bit more physical. But I just don't think he's that physical. I don't think, he ran a 4.56. I don't think he's got a great athletic profile. But I mean, he's good. He's good at the catch point. That's okay, I guess. So good for them. All right. So after that, AJ Henning, another receiver, 59 catches, 603 yards from Northwestern. 5'10". Yeah, I think that's a camp body. Nate Knoll, that's interesting. 818 yards. He's okay. He led the conference in 2021, as I said, they're 1,126 yards. That's okay. Now, this is a really good one. Texas, Jalen Conyers, I thought he would get drafted. They gave him $115,000. I thought he would get drafted. I thought there was no way he made it. And he made it. He's a really good athlete. I mean, he's like 6'3 and a half, 260, and he's a very good athlete for that size. He ran like a 4.74. But, you know, he had like a 35 and a half inch vert, you know, a 10-foot 1-inch broad jump. He's a very good athlete. I think he's, you know, he's got some burst too to his game, you know? So, you know, he's strong at the catch point. You know, he can high point footballs, can play, he can catch with, you know, he can catch being contacted. So, you know, I think this is, you know, and he's a decent route runner with a decently expanded route tree. He's a good blocker. You know, like, I think this is an interesting thing. Yeah, I like that pick a lot. And we're going to dive into that more tomorrow, but that's a good pick. Michigan guard Josh Preby had 42 career starts at guard for the Wildcats and the Wolverines. I've watched the Wolverines. I haven't focused in on Josh Preby. I'm not going to lie to you. Alabama long snapper Neeland Hibbert was signed. He'll compete with Blake Ferguson. There you go. BJ Adams. He had a 30 visit. I like that. That's a good pick. 6'2", 2 interceptions. You know, 4'3", 40-yard dash. That's a good pick. That's another good corner right there. I thought he'd get drafted. Here's a really good one. Linebacker, Auburn linebacker Eugene Asante. I thought he'd get picked. I thought no way I thought Eugene Asante would still be around. Like, I thought he was getting picked. That is a very, very good, that is a very good signing right there. Like, wow. Like, give them a round of applause for Eugene Asante. That is a really strong signing. You know, oh man. Like, he's a good athlete. 4.48. This guy's 6 foot, 223 pounds, and he ran a 4.48. Yeah, man. You see the speed in that motor all day. Can run, cover sideline to sideline. You know, I think he's a smart player. You know, read and react player, quick diagnoser. You know what I mean? I think he's got a little bit of power to that frame. He made that freak list that I keep showing you guys about. Man. Now, obviously, his size isn't ideal, but man, and he can miss tackles here and there, but man, that's a really, really good. I'm telling you, I like that one a lot. Ethan Robinson, I haven't had a chance to dive into his tape. Western Michigan center Addison West, haven't had a chance to dive into his tape. Alex Huntley agreed to a deal. He's 6'4", 305 pounds, defensive tackle. I've actually watched a little bit of him. It's actually not bad. That's a decent signing. Stacking up. So the Miami Dolphins, they are adding a ton right now to the room. I love it. I love what we're seeing. Great stuff. Great stuff. So the Miami Dolphins, they made a lot of good moves today. You know, would I have went a different way on some of these? Sure, probably. But at the end of the day, man, can't hate. You can't hate. Added a ton of good talent, I thought, today. I really thought they added a ton of good talent. Since no more O-line were drafted, should we grab some off of free agency? Well, you're already seeing the UDFAs stack up, Hammer. You're already seeing the UDFAs stack up at offensive line. You're already seeing that. So, and Hammer, are you TCB Hammer on Twitter? Let me know in the chat. All right, man. Wow. Wild first day for the Miami Dolphins. Shout out to everyone in the chat right now. Smash that like button. Subscribe for new. I'm going to get out of here. Man, we went over every draft pick. We broke down some of the UDFAs. Tomorrow, I'm going to hand out draft grades and UDFA signing grades. So make sure you tune in. We're going to dive deeper into some of these picks and these UDFA signings. Tomorrow, we're handing out grades because the UDFA class is only going to grow. And who knows? Maybe we have a deal happen tomorrow. All right. Yo, shout out to you, Hammer. I see you, son. All right. See y'all in the next one. Fins up all day, every day. Smash that like button. Subscribe for new. I love each and every one of you. I appreciate each and every one of you. And we ain't done. Grades tomorrow. Prospect profiles and deeper dive into some of these prospects for you coming your way. A lot more. Fins up all day, every day. We'll see y'all tomorrow.